Hi, g'day. My name's Tyson. I'm an Australian citizen and I want to talk to you today briefly about a set of property taxes that have absolutely ruined and will ruin both financially and emotionally Australian citizens' lives. In particular, I want to talk about a set of taxes introduced by the Queensland State Labor government under the Palaszczuk regime. In the 2017 state budget, the Treasurer Curtis Pitt announced that they were going to introduce an absentee surcharge for people that were overseas for a mere 6 months a year. 6 months, that's it. For whatever reason, except for a very, very small number of exemptions. Majority of people are affected by this. If you own a property in Queensland and you're overseas for 6 months or more a year, for holidays, for work, for scholarships, for career break, it doesn't matter. You are going to be slugged with this massive, massive set of taxes. They are, not only were they introduced in 2017, they're made retrospective so that people who were overseas the year before, from the 1st of July, were affected. I was one of them. I got smashed this tax. There was no warning. The way it was introduced by Curtis Pitt in the budget, it was surreptitiously introduced as well. The media didn't even realise what had happened. They thought it was just for foreign residents. Curtis Pitt said it won't affect Queenslanders. What an absolute load of crap. It does affect Queenslanders. There are Queensland property owners who go overseas for 6 months or more a year. But all of a sudden, aren't they Queenslanders? I don't understand, Curtis Pitt, what you mean by it won't affect Queenslanders, but it affects Queenslanders. It affects everybody else as well who owns the property in Queensland, whether you live in Queensland or not. But regardless of that, what's happened is this set of taxes is so extreme that is multiple times the amount of taxes that anybody as a resident would pay. Multiple times. We're talking an exponential number of increase in amounts. We're talking amounts that are so extreme. For example, we've got people paying $18,000, $20,000 bills. Mine wasn't that extreme, but mine was extreme as well. I'm a self-funded retiree. I bought my property 4 months before this damn set of taxes was introduced. There was no warning whatsoever. I was told it was a safe state to invest in as a property investor, that I would be able to get a decent income stream. I pay taxes. I pay a raft of other fees that you pay for holding a property, like everybody else does, resident or not. But for some reason, Labor says, oh, it's to compensate for the taxes and other things that you would not pay if you were normally a resident, which is an absolute load of crap. We're paying so much more that there is no way as a resident you would be paying anywhere near what we as an absentee pay. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It is so exorbitant, it is so punitive, it is so unconstitutional, it's a breach of economic human rights. There are so many things wrong with this set of taxes. And not only that, the Labor government tells a property council that it's to target rich people. I'm not rich, and neither are most people, excuse me, that are taxed. There are retirees, people that go overseas for bucket list holidays. There are people on career breaks. There are people that go overseas for internships, for scholarships, that are on contract jobs. People that go overseas for so many different reasons. There are people that can't return because they've got medical problems. They're not fit to fly. But all of a sudden, they get taxed as well because the Office of the State Revenue says there's no exemption for medical conditions as well. I was one of them. I was subject to some serious health problems when I was overseas, and I mentioned it. Hey, I was overseas and I couldn't come back for 4 more months because I had this medical complaint and I was issued a certificate, not fit to fly. But no, the state revenue said, no, we don't have any exemption under the Act for that as well. Just ridiculous. Not only that, I'll just touch briefly on another problem that Australians are facing. This is all of Australia now, by the way. And this relates to under the Morrison-Turnbull government at the time, they decided to remove the capital gains tax exemption for people that have a primary residence in Australia if you become a non-resident. And a primary residence, a principal place of residence, it means the same thing, I believe. But what it means is that if you become a non-resident, even though you owned a property and lived in it, even for 10 years, it doesn't matter, before you went overseas, all of a sudden you don't have that capital gains tax exemption anymore. That you've spent so many years where you did have it, but suddenly, for whatever reason, and there's a raft of different reasons why you become a non-resident, it's a global world, by the way, you go overseas, suddenly you're smashed with this this removal of this exemption, so that if you want to sell your property, you have to pay a foreign resident rate of capital gains tax, which I believe is 45%. So if you're forced to sell your property as a non-resident overseas, despite having it as a primary residence, it's no longer applicable. The Morrison government decided, under the Turnbull government, but it's now the Morrison government, that this is what was going to happen. But not only that, they've given till June next year, end of June next year, to sell your property if you want to still get the exemption. So they've grandfathered it till next year, but in the worst possible time, during a housing crash for most of Australia, people can't sell their properties. So they're stuck with this problem that they have to sell their property at the worst possible time so that they can at least get the capital gains tax exemption. Otherwise, if they hold, then they're going to have to wait maybe decades before, or maybe not decades, but a long, long time before they can make up for what capital gains tax they're going to have to pay as a non-resident. 45% is just ridiculous as an Australian citizen. They're not foreign residents, they're Australian citizens. But suddenly they're smashed with this ridiculous tax like they're not Australian citizens anymore. It's just so unconstitutional. And not only that, the bill hasn't even been passed. So people are in this state of anxiety thinking, well, I can't sell my property anyway. It's been withdrawn from the market. People aren't buying. So hopefully the bill just won't be passed, because it looks like the Liberal government may lose anyway in the next election. But people just don't know. Under the Australian Tax Office website, it appears that they're preparing for the bill to be passed. They're telling people they've got to the end of June to sell their property. But in reality, the bill hasn't been passed. So if the bill isn't passed and people hold their property, then they're still going to get exemption. But there are people saying, well, maybe I should err on the side of caution and sell my property. And that's what people are doing. They're selling their property in a down market, being disadvantaged because of a government who hasn't even passed the damn bill yet, has decided they're going to implement on people who become non-residents, because they wanted to somehow deflate this housing bubble that was caused not by Australian residents anyway, but anyone who becomes a non-resident, even though an Australian citizen, is treated as a foreign resident. The housing market is crashing now anyway, so you don't even need to implement this set of changes. Scrap it. Anyway, I want you to join my Facebook page. In particular, I'm talking about people that have owned properties who own property in Queensland. The Facebook page is called the Queensland Land Tax and Absentee Surcharge Victim Support Group. So please look it up and join my Facebook page. We want to get enough people so we can lobby the government, get support from members of parliament, get into the media, get into everyone's faces, because the media didn't even know about the fact that it was affecting Australian residents as well. When it initially came out during the budget, they just mentioned foreign residents. I actually had to contact a reporter to say, oh, you guys aren't mentioning Australian residents. That's because Curtis Pitt glossed it over and just said it won't affect Queenslanders. He only mentioned foreign residents. He never mentioned Australian citizens. They just wanted to surreptitiously get this through without any fuss and make it so that proper Australian residents and Queenslanders didn't even know it was going to affect them, because it will affect you. It will affect all of you. If you own a property in Queensland, you are so disadvantaged you do not realise what's going on. You have travel restrictions. You can't take up job opportunities overseas like other people. You have to forego a lot of opportunities that other states have the freedom to do. You're a prisoner of the state. 6 months a year you have a curfew because you own a property in Queensland. What is this, a dictatorship or a socialist communist state? It's just pathetic. I've never ever experienced anything like this in a democratic society in my life. Queensland has gone totally over the top. Hypocrites they are as well. Palaszczuk, 2015, when she was elected, not long after, the Victorian state government introduces an absentee surcharge, but only for foreign residents. They did not introduce it for Australian citizens because they knew wiser that it was too unfair. And then back then in 2015, Palaszczuk says, invest in Queensland because we don't have this tax. So he invites everyone to invest in Queensland. So people unaware spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or more in Queensland property, thinking that this is a safe place to invest. We're not going to get taxed. But guess what happens? 2017, and she backflips and then imposes this damn set of taxes, but also includes Australian citizens. What a hypocrite. It's unconstitutional. And I don't know why it even passed the scrutiny committee when they were looking at this legislation to begin with. Anyway, join my group. Please, if you're affected, you need to join the group. Pass this message on to as many people as possible. All Queenslanders need to be made aware. The property council's against this. The Queensland pensioners and superannuation league is against this. We have people from all different organisations against this. The opposition's against this as well. Please, come and join my group. We need more people. We need to lobby the government and scrap this set of ridiculous taxes. And I'm also talking about this capital gains tax exemption for all Australians. You're all affected. Please. Thank you.